The very fact that you are here tonight suggests that something within you knows there is more. Something in you recognizes that the state of consciousness in which you dwell is not the final chapter of your story. And you are absolutely right, for no state is final unless you decree it to be so. The magnificent truth I wish to share with you tonight is that freedom, complete and total freedom, is your natural inheritance. It is the fundamental reality of your being, and the path to claiming this freedom is not outside of you, but within the divine operation of your own wonderful human imagination. Let me share with you a profound truth that changed my life and has transformed the lives of countless others who have tested it and found it to be the one grand law of life. Consciousness is the one and only reality. Everything that you perceive, everything that makes up your world is nothing more than your consciousness pushed out. The world that seems to hold you captive is but a reflection of your own states of consciousness made visible. The prison that appears to constrain you exists nowhere but in your own imagination. When you truly grasp this principle, not merely intellectually, but in the very depths of your being, you will understand that the key to your freedom has been in your possession all along. For if consciousness is the only reality and your world is simply consciousness objectified, then to change your world, you need only change your consciousness. This is the divine art of assumption. By assuming the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you can transform the shadow world of limitation into the substance of freedom. Many people come to me and say, "Nebel, I understand these principles. I grasp them intellectually, but still I feel stuck. I cannot seem to break free from my circumstances." And to this I reply, the feeling of being stuck persists because you have not yet made real to yourself the truth that you are pure consciousness, pure awareness, and that this consciousness is the only reality. You have not fully accepted that the world and all its circumstances are mere reflections, mere shadows of your own magnificent inner states. Consider for a moment what it means to be stuck. To be stuck implies that there is something external to you, something outside of your control that is restraining your movement, limiting your options, confining your existence. But I tell you with absolute certainty, there is nothing outside of consciousness. There is nothing external to you, for you are consciousness, and consciousness is all there is. The walls you perceive around you, the limitations you feel so acutely exist only because you have granted them reality in your consciousness. Tonight, I invite you to make a revolutionary discovery. You are not stuck because of external circumstances. You are experiencing the state of being stuck because you are dwelling in that state in consciousness. And just as you can enter a state, you can exit it. Just as you can assume one state of consciousness, you can assume another. This is the miracle of your being the power to choose the state in which you will dwell. Let me share with you a simple yet profound practice that will begin to dissolve the illusion of being stuck. Right now, wherever you are, close your eyes for a moment. Take a deep breath and relax your body completely. Now, in your imagination, see yourself as you would be if you were completely free. Feel the feeling of that freedom. What would it feel like to move without restriction? How would you carry yourself if all limitations were gone? What thoughts would fill your mind if you knew yourself to be absolutely free? Dwell in this state. Saturate yourself with the feeling of freedom. Make it so real, so vivid, that for a moment you forget the old state of being stuck. In that moment of complete absorption in the state of freedom, you have planted a seed in the fertile soil of your consciousness, and what you plant must grow. What you assume must become, but perhaps you're thinking, "I've tried this before and nothing changed." To this, I would remind you of a principle I often emphasize. The time track is a device of the human mind. In the realm of consciousness, in the realm of true causation, there is no time. The seed planted in consciousness will blossom in your world when the conditions are right, when the bridge of incidence has been crossed. Your role is not to make the seed grow. Your role is not to force the manifestation. Your role is simply to plant the seed through the art of assumption and to remain faithful to that assumption despite all evidence to the contrary. For remember, the evidence of your senses only tells you what is, it cannot tell you what will be. And what will be is determined not by what is, but by the state you occupy in consciousness. In my own life, I have tested this law countless times, and it has never failed me. I recall a time when I felt completely constrained by financial limitations. All the evidence of my senses told me that I was trapped in poverty, that there was no way out. But instead of accepting this as my final state, I began to assume the feeling of wealth and abundance. I would fall asleep each night feeling the joy and relief of financial freedom. I would walk through my days carrying myself as one who was abundantly supplied. I did not deny the facts of my current situation, but I refused to give them power over my consciousness. And then seemingly out of nowhere, opportunities began to present themselves. Doors began to open that I could not have anticipated. People entered my life bearing gifts that aligned perfectly with my needs. The bridge of incidents formed itself, leading me from the state of financial constraint to the state of abundance I had assumed in consciousness. This is the law that governs all manifestation. Consciousness is the only reality, and what you experience in the outer world is simply consciousness objectified. Therefore, to change your experience, you must change your consciousness. But changing consciousness is not a matter of positive thinking or wishful hoping. It is not about affirming affirmations or repeating mantras. It is about entering so completely into the state of your wish fulfilled that you temporarily forget all other states. It is about making your desired state so vivid, so real in your imagination that it displaces your awareness of the unwanted state. Let me offer you a practical approach to this divine art of assumption. Tonight, when you retire to sleep, lie upon your bed and relax your body completely. Then in your imagination, construct a scene that would imply your freedom from whatever condition has made you feel stuck. Make the scene as vivid and as real as you possibly can. For instance, if you feel stuck in a job that drains your energy and stifles your creativity, imagine a conversation with a friend in which you share your excitement about your new position, one that fulfills you and allows your talents to flourish. Hear your friend's congratulations. Feel the handshake or the embrace. Experience the relief and joy of having transcended the old limitation. Or perhaps you feel stuck in a relationship pattern that brings you pain. Imagine instead a conversation in which you describe to a trusted friend the wonderful harmony and love you now experience. Feel the satisfaction of having moved beyond the old pattern into a new state of mutual respect and affection. Whatever the specific circumstance that has made you feel stuck, create a scene that would naturally follow if you were now free from that limitation. Enter fully into this imaginal scene. Make it so real that for a brief time you forget you are imagining. Feel the feelings that the fulfilled wish would bring. Then, carrying this feeling, drift off to sleep. In doing this, you are planting the seed of your freedom in the fertile soil of consciousness. You are impressing upon the subconscious mind, which knows no limitations and possesses the power to transform your world, the reality of your wish fulfilled. And what is impressed upon the subconscious must be expressed in your world. Some of you may wonder, how long must I persist in this practice before I see results? The answer is you persist until the feeling of your wish fulfilled becomes more real to you than the feeling of being stuck. You persist until you have displaced the old state completely and dwell naturally in the new state. For some, this displacement may occur in a single night of profound imagining. For others, it may require repeated sessions of entering the state of the wish fulfilled. But know this, the law is infallible. What you assume you must become, what you impress upon consciousness, consciousness must express. Remember, time is a construct of the human mind. In the realm of true causation, the realm of consciousness, there is no time. The seed planted today may flower tomorrow or next week or next month. Your task is not to set the timetable for manifestation. Your task is simply to plant the seed with conviction and to tend it with fidelity to your assumption. Now, I understand that for many of you, the feeling of being stuck has persisted for so long that it seems like an unchangeable fact of your existence. Perhaps you've tried various methods to break free, positive thinking, goal setting, seeking advice from experts, and still the walls remain. This persistent experience can make it difficult to believe that freedom is truly possible for you. But I ask you to consider this: the very fact that you can conceive of freedom proves that it exists within your consciousness. And if it exists within your consciousness, it can be made manifest in your world. For consciousness is the only reality, and what exists in consciousness must, by the law of assumption, be expressed in experience. The Bible, when properly understood as a psychological drama rather than a historical document, reveals this truth. When the psalmist says, "He brought me forth also into a large place, He delivered me, because He delighted in me," he is describing the movement from a state of confinement to a state of freedom that occurs when one delights in or fully occupies a new state of consciousness. And in Isaiah we read, Enlarge the place of thy tent, and let them stretch forth the curtains of thine habitation. Spare not, lengthen thy cords, and strengthen thy stakes. This is not a command to physically expand one's dwelling. It is an invitation to expand consciousness, to move beyond the limited state in which one has been dwelling, and to occupy a larger, more expansive state. This expansion of consciousness is the true meaning of freedom. It is not merely freedom from external constraints, though that will follow, but freedom from the limited concepts, self and world, that have kept you bound to unwanted conditions. Consider the story of the Exodus, which is often read as a historical account of the Israelites' liberation from slavery in Egypt. But on a deeper level, it is the story of consciousness liberating itself from the bondage of limiting beliefs and assumptions. Egypt represents the state of limitation, the state of being stuck, and the journey to the promised land represents the movement of consciousness from limitation to freedom. But note well, before the Israelites could physically leave Egypt, they had to leave it in consciousness. They had to believe in the possibility of freedom before freedom could become their experience. This is the pattern of all liberation, first in consciousness, then in manifestation. So tonight, I invite you to begin your exodus from the Egypt of limitation. I invite you to cross the Red Sea of impossibility and to enter the wilderness of transformation, trusting that the promised land of your freedom awaits you. But how does one begin this journey? How does one take the first step toward freedom when feeling so completely stuck? The answer lies in the art of revision, the practice of mentally rewriting the events of your day to align with the state you wish to occupy. Each night, before you enter into the state of your wish fulfilled as you fall asleep, take a few moments to review the events of your day. Identify moments when you felt particularly stuck, when the walls seemed especially confining. Now in your imagination, rewrite these events. See them unfolding differently. Feel how you would have felt if in those moments you had experienced freedom rather than limitation. For instance, if during the day you had a conversation in which you felt small and powerless, revise that conversation. In your imagination, see yourself speaking with confidence and authority. Feel the satisfaction of expressing yourself fully and being received with respect. Or if you encountered a circumstance that seemed to confirm your state of being stuck, revise that circumstance. See it unfolding in a way that confirms your freedom instead. This practice of revision serves two powerful purposes. First, it prevents the accumulation of impressions that would reinforce the unwanted state. By revising the events of your day, you are ensuring that your subconscious is not being continually impressed with the feeling of being stuck. Second, it actively impresses upon the subconscious the feeling of the state you wish to occupy, the state of freedom. Over time, this practice will transform your habitual state of consciousness. And as your consciousness transforms, so must your world transform, for your world is nothing more than your consciousness objectified. But perhaps the most challenging aspect of this practice is maintaining fidelity to your new assumption in the face of persisting evidence to the contrary. The world, being a shadow of past states of consciousness, will for a time continue to reflect the old state even as you begin to dwell in the new. This persistence of the old reality can test your faith in the law, tempting you to abandon your assumption and return to the familiar if unwanted state of being stuck. This is why I emphasize the importance of dwelling in the state of the wish fulfilled with such intensity, such completeness, that for those moments at least, the old state is entirely forgotten, for it is in these moments of complete absorption in the new state that the most powerful impressions are made upon the subconscious. I recall a student of mine who had been confined to a wheelchair for many years following an accident. All medical opinion confirmed that his condition was permanent, yet night after night, he would enter into the state of being whole and active. In his imagination, he would dance, run, climb stairs with ease. He would feel the strength in his legs, the freedom of movement, the joy of physical activity. For months there was no visible change in his condition. The evidence of his senses continued to testify to his limitation, but he remained faithful to his assumption. He continued to revise his days, replacing moments of limitation with imaginal experiences of freedom. He continued to fall asleep each night in the state of his wish fulfilled, and then gradually things began to change. Sensation began to return to parts of his body that had been numb. Small movements became possible where there had been none. Medical professionals were baffled but confirmed the changes, and over time, through what they called a miraculous recovery, he regained the full use of his body. Was this a miracle in the supernatural sense? No, it was the natural operation of the law of consciousness. He had so completely revised his concept of himself, so thoroughly impressed upon the subconscious the state of being whole and free, that the subconscious had no choice but to express this new concept in his physical experience. This same law operates in every sphere of your life. Whether you feel stuck in health, in wealth, in relationships, in career, the way out is the same. You must revise your concept of self. You must exchange your limited self-concept for an expanded one, and you must do this not merely as an intellectual exercise, but as a vivid, feelingful experience in imagination. For imagination is not, as many suppose, a faculty for daydreaming or escapism. Imagination is nothing less than consciousness itself in its creative aspect. It is the God power within you, the I am clothed in the specific forms of your assumptions. When you say, I am stuck, you are not merely describing your condition, you are invoking the creative power of the I am to produce and sustain that condition. And when you say, I am free, you are invoking that same power to produce and sustain freedom. The I am in you will become whatever you attach to it through feeling. This is why feelings are so crucial in the law of assumption. It is not enough to intellectually understand that you are not truly stuck, that the limitations you perceive are illusions of consciousness. You must feel your freedom. You must experience it so vividly in imagination that the feeling of being stuck is displaced completely, if only for a moment. Some may argue, but Wayne, the circumstances that make me feel stuck are real. They are not merely in my imagination. To this I would reply, yes, the circumstances appear real because they are the objectification of previous states of consciousness. They are the shadow cast by the light of consciousness. But shadows, no matter how dark they appear, cannot persist in the presence of light. When you shift your consciousness from the state of being stuck to the state of being free, you are turning on the light. And though the shadow may not disappear instantly, it must eventually give way to the light, for that is the law of consciousness. I invite you to test this law for yourself. Do not take my word for it. Do not believe it merely because it appeals to you intellectually. Test it in the laboratory of your own life. Apply the principles I have shared with you tonight to some area where you feel stuck and observe the results with the detachment of a scientist. Begin tonight. When you retire to sleep, revise the events of your day that reinforce the feeling of being stuck. Then enter fully into a scene that implies your freedom. Make it vivid. Feel it deeply. Carry this feeling as you drift off to sleep. Do this night after night and watch how your world begins to transform. Notice how opportunities appear that were not there before. Observe how circumstances rearrange themselves to accommodate your new state of consciousness. Marvel at the bridge of incidents that forms itself, leading you from the state of being stuck to the state of freedom you have assumed in consciousness. But a word of caution, do not look for science too eagerly in the beginning. Do not dig up the seed to see if it is growing. Allow the law to operate in its own time and in its own way. Your role is to plant the seed through assumption and to nurture it through fidelity to that assumption. The law will take care of the manifestation. I am reminded of a beautiful passage from Ecclesiastes. In the morning sow thy seed, and in the evening withhold not thine hand, for thou knowest not whether shall prosper either this or that, or whether they both shall be alike good. Sow the seed of your assumption in the morning of your consciousness, and sow it again in the evening. Do not try to determine which particular act of sowing will produce the harvest. Trust the law to bring forth the manifestation in its own perfect time. There is another aspect of the feeling of being stuck that I wish to address, for it can be particularly pernicious. Often the feeling of being stuck is accompanied by a sense of unworthiness, a belief that one does not deserve freedom, or that one has somehow caused one's own imprisonment through past mistakes or failures. This sense of unworthiness is itself a state of consciousness, and like all states, it can be exchanged for another. You need not justify your desire for freedom. You need not earn the right to live the life you wish to live. Freedom is your natural inheritance. It is the fundamental reality of your being. To claim it, you need only assume it as yours. In the scripture we read, your Father has pleased to give you the kingdom. The kingdom, the realm of infinite possibility of complete freedom, is already yours. It has already been given to you. Your task is not to earn it, but to accept it, to assume it, to enter into it through the portal of your imagination. So tonight, as you lie down to sleep, let go of all thoughts on worthiness. Release all beliefs that you must somehow qualify for the freedom you desire. Instead, assume the feeling of already being the person you wish to be, already living the life you wish to live, already possessing the freedom you seek. For in the realm of consciousness, in the realm of the real, there is no process of becoming. There is only being. You do not become free. You recognize the freedom that has always been yours. You do not achieve the fulfillment of your desires. You awaken to the fulfillment that has always existed within you. This is the great mystery to which all spiritual teachings point. What you are seeking, you already are. What you desire to possess, you already possess. The journey is not one of acquisition, but of recognition. When you truly understand this, the feeling of being stuck dissolves like mist in the morning sun. For how can you be stuck when you are consciousness itself and consciousness is unlimited? How can you be confined when your true identity is the I am and the I am knows no restrictions? Let me share with you one more practice that can help to dissolve the feeling of being stuck. Throughout your day, whenever you catch yourself feeling limited or confined, pause and ask yourself this question. What would the feeling be like if I were now the person I desire to be? How would I see this circumstance if I were now free from all limitations? Then, for just a moment, assume that feeling. Enter into it completely. Let it permeate your being. This momentary assumption, repeated throughout your day, will gradually transform your habitual state of consciousness. And as your consciousness transforms, so must your world transform. Remember the words attributed to Jesus. The truth shall make you free, but what is this truth that liberates? It is the truth of your own being that you are pure consciousness, that you are the operant power, that the world is your consciousness pushed out. When you know this truth, not merely intellectually, but through the direct experience of testing it in your own life, you will never again feel permanently stuck in any circumstance, for you will have discovered the secret of liberation. The prison that seemed to confine you was built by your own imagination, and what imagination has constructed, imagination can deconstruct. The walls that appeared so solid were made of assumptions, and assumptions can be changed. This is the freedom I offer you tonight. Not freedom from certain circumstances, but freedom from the belief that circumstances have power over you. Not freedom from conditions, but freedom from the assumption that conditions can contain the infinite being that you are. Test this law of assumption. Apply it to your own feeling of being stuck. Enter fully into the state of your wish fulfilled and observe how the universe rearranges itself to accommodate your new concept of self. For that is the promise of the law: as a man assumes, so he becomes. And know this, there is no limitation in consciousness itself. The only limitations are those you accept through your assumptions. Therefore, assume freedom, and freedom must become your experience. Assume abundance, and abundance must flow into your life. Assume love, and love must surround you. For consciousness is the only reality, and what you assume in consciousness must be made manifest in your world. The choice is yours. You can continue to assume the state of being stuck, and your experience will continue to validate that assumption. Or you can assume the state of freedom and watch as the universe conspires to make that assumption a reality. Begin tonight as you fall asleep. Enter so completely into the feeling of your wish fulfilled that the feeling of being stuck is utterly forgotten. Do this night after night and test the law for yourself. For the promise is true if you know these things. Happy are you if you do them. The practice I have outlined for you is simple, but it requires discipline and persistence. It requires that you be faithful to your assumption even when all the evidence of your senses contradicts it. But the rewards of this faithfulness are beyond measure. For in assuming the state of freedom, you are not merely changing your circumstances. You are awakening to the truth of your being. You are recognizing the divine power that has been yours from the beginning. This recognition is the true meaning of salvation, not salvation from an external threat, but salvation from the limited concept of self that has kept you bound to unwanted conditions. It is awakening to the truth that sets you free. So tonight, as you leave this place, carry with you this knowledge. The feeling of being stuck is not your natural state. It is an assumed condition, and what has been assumed can be relinquished. Freedom is your birthright, your natural inheritance, the fundamental reality of your being. Claim it through the divine art of assumption and watch as the prison walls that seem so solid dissolve like shadows of the light of your own awakened consciousness. For you are not a prisoner unless you believe yourself to be one. You are not stuck unless you assume yourself to be stuck. You are free eternally, completely free when you awaken to the truth of your own infinite being. Begin the practice tonight. Enter the state of freedom through the portal of your imagination. Feel it with all the intensity you can muster and know that as you assume this state, as you make it real in your consciousness, it must become real in your experience. For that is the law, that is the promise, that is the truth that sets you free. Remember always, consciousness is the only reality and you are consciousness. Therefore, you are the reality behind all appearances. You are the power that shapes your world. You are the freedom you seek. Go now and test this truth for yourself. For in testing it, you will discover the greatest secret of all. The key to your freedom has been in your possession all along. It is your own wonderful human imagination, the God power within you clothed in the specific forms of your assumptions. Use this power wisely. Use it lovingly. Use it to liberate yourself from all limitations, and as you experience the freedom that is your natural state, share this knowledge with others who still feel stuck, that they too might awaken to the truth of their being. For this is why we are here, not merely to seek our own liberation, but to help awaken all humanity to the glorious truth that sets everyone free. The truth that there is no power outside of consciousness, the truth that what we assume we become, the truth that freedom is not a destination to be reached, but a present reality to be recognized. So tonight assume the state of freedom, feel its reality, live from it, and watch as your world transforms to reflect the new concept of self you have assumed. For that is the promise of the law, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. The renewal begins tonight in the quiet sanctuary of your own imagination. It begins with the simple but profound act of assuming the feeling of your wish fulfilled. It begins with the recognition that the prison that seemed to confine you is built of assumptions, and what has been built can be dismantled. The tools are in your hands, the power is within you, the choice is yours. Choose freedom. Choose it now, not as a future possibility, but as a present reality. Feel its presence, embody its truth, and from this new state of consciousness, watch as the universe conspires to set you free. For that is the law, that is the promise, that is the truth that liberates all who discover it and apply it in their lives. The feeling of being stuck is not your natural state. Freedom is your birthright. Claim it through the divine art of assumption, and it must become your experience. For consciousness is the only reality, and you are consciousness itself expressing in the specific forms of your assumptions. Assume freedom, and freedom shall be yours. This is the law, this is the promise, this is the truth that sets you free. The Bible, which I have always maintained, is not a historical document, but a psychological drama. Tells us in Proverbs, "Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life." What is this heart that we must guard so carefully? It is not the physical organ crumping blood through your veins, but the center of your being, your consciousness, your awareness, your I am. When you focus on yourself, you are turning to the only creative power in your world. You are acknowledging that what you are conscious of being, you will express in your outer world. This is the fundamental law of manifestation that has been taught in veiled language throughout all sacred texts. You do not know that the kingdom of heaven is within you, that you need not look to external circumstances, to other people, or to future events for your good. All that you seek is already present within your consciousness, awaiting your recognition and acceptance. The world may tell you to focus outwardly, to study the actions of others, to compete, to strive, to force changes in your environment. But I tell you that such effort is unnecessary when you understand the law of consciousness. For when you change your inner state, your outer world must conform to that change. It has no choice, for it is only the shadow of your inner reality. And what of this silence that I urge you to maintain? It is not merely the absence of speech, though that is indeed part of it. The silence I speak of is a profound iniquity, a refusal to contradict in thought, word, or deed the assumption that your desire is already fulfilled. In the book of Exodus, we find these words, "The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace." This is the true meaning of staying silent. It is allowing the law, your own wonderful human imagination, to do its perfect work without interference from your doubting, reasoning mind. How many times have you planted a seed of desire in your consciousness only to dig it up repeatedly with your doubts and fears? How often have you declared that a thing is so, only to contradict it moments later with anxious thoughts? This is the very opposite of maintaining silence. The silence I advocate is a complete mental acceptance that what you have imagined is now reality in the spiritual realm, and therefore must inevitably materialize in your experience. It is a calm knowing, a peaceful certainty that needs no outer confirmation. Let me share with you a simple technique that has helped countless individuals to focus on themselves and maintain this creative silence. When you retire at night, lie flat on your back with your head upon a pillow, close your eyes and completely relax your body. Now bring your attention to your breathing, not to control it, but simply to observe its natural rhythm. As your body relaxes and your mind begins to quiet, turn your attention inward. Become aware of yourself as pure consciousness as the observer, not the things observed. Feel the reality of your own existence apart from all conditions and circumstances. Now from this state of self-awareness, begin to imagine a scene that would imply the fulfillment of your desire. See it clearly, feel it to be real, and allow yourself to become emotionally involved in this imaginal act. Feel the joy, the relief, the satisfaction of having already attained what you seek. This is focusing on yourself, on your own creative consciousness. And as you fall asleep in this state, you are maintaining the silence that allows the seed to take root in the soil of your subconscious mind. Do not wake in the morning and immediately begin to question whether your imaginal act was effective. Do not look to your external world for immediate signs of change. Instead, maintain your silence. Go about your day from the calm center of knowing that what you have imagined must come to pass, for that is the law. The Bible tells us, "Be still and know that I am God." This stillness, this silence is not inactivity. It is the most powerful form of action possible, for it aligns you with the creative forces of the universe itself. Consider the words of the psalmist. I said, "I will take heed to my ways, that I sin not with my tongue. I will keep my mouth with a bridle while the wicked is before me. I was dumb with silence. I held my peace even from good, and my sorrow was stirred." This passage beautifully illustrates the challenge and the power of maintaining silence. Even when confronted with conditions that seem to deny our desires, while the wicked is before me, we must hold our peace. We must refuse to give voice to doubt, fear, or contradiction. Let me tell you of a lady who came to me in distress. Husband had left her for another woman, and she was consumed with jealousy, anger, and the desperate need to take action to reclaim him. She asked what she should do. Should she confront the other woman? Should she beg her husband to return? Should she seek legal counsel? I told her to do nothing outwardly. Instead, I instructed her to focus on herself, on her own consciousness, and to create there the state of being happily married. Each night she was to fall asleep feeling the presence of her husband beside her, hearing his voice experiencing the comfort and security of their restored relationship. And above all, I urged her to maintain silence, not to speak to others of her problems, not to confront her husband and his mistress, not even to affirm verbally what she was creating in imagination, simply to know within herself that the marriage was restored in her consciousness and therefore must manifest in her experience. Within 1 month her husband returned, the relationship with the other woman having dissolved of its own accord. No outer action was necessary. By focusing on herself, on her own creative consciousness, and by maintaining silence, she had allowed the law to operate without interference. This principle applies to every area of life. Are you seeking financial abundance? Do not focus on the outer conditions that seem to limit you. Do not speak constantly of lack or engage in anxious discussions about the economy. Instead, focus on yourself, on your consciousness, and establish there the feeling of wealth and security. Live from that state in your imagination and maintain silence as the outer world rearranges itself to match your inner assumption. Do you desire health? Then do not dwell upon the condition of your body or engage in endless conversations about symptoms and treatments. Focus instead on the feeling of being perfectly well. Establish that state within your consciousness and maintain silence as the creative law works through you to manifest physical harmony. I tell you that all things are possible to him who believes. A true belief is not merely an intellectual acceptance, but a state of consciousness, a feeling of the wish fulfilled. When you focus on yourself, on your IA, and identify it with your desire, you have set in motion the law that must bring your desire to fruition. Some may misunderstand this teaching and consider it selfish or impractical. They may say, "But Wayne, we must take action in the world. We cannot simply sit and imagine." To them I would reply that I am not advocating inaction, but rather the most appropriate and effective action of consciousness. All outer actions, when they are not inspired by a changed consciousness, are merely futile attempts to bring about change through effort and will. But when action flows naturally from a transformed inner state, it is effortless and perfectly suited to the manifestation of your desire. I recall a gentleman who attended one of my lectures in New York. He approached me afterward and said, "I understand what you're teaching, but I've been imagining financial success for months with no results. What am I doing wrong?" Upon questioning him, I discovered that while he was indeed in imaginative scenes of wealth each night, during his days he was constantly speaking of his financial problems, checking his bank balance anxiously, and focusing on the gap between his desire and his current reality. I said to him, "You are planting a seed with your imaginal act, but then you are daily digging it up to see if it has grown. You must maintain silence. You must stop contradicting your assumption of wealth with your words and actions." He took this advice to heart. He continued his nightly practice of imagining wealth, but he also began to focus on himself, on controlling his inner conversations and maintaining an attitude consistent with his desire. He ceased speaking of financial problems and even stopped checking his bank balance compulsively. Within 6 weeks, he received an unexpected business opportunity that eventually led to the financial abundance he had been seeking. The outer action accepting and developing the opportunity came naturally and effortlessly because it was inspired by his changed consciousness. The Bible states, "In returning and rest shall ye be saved. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength." This is the true meaning of focusing on yourself and staying silent. It is returning to the center of your being, resting in the assumption that your desire is fulfilled, maintaining the quietness that allows the seed to grow undisturbed, and having complete confidence in the law of your own consciousness. Let us now explore another dimension of this practice. When you focus on yourself, you withdraw attention from the limitations of the outer world. You cease to be mesmerized by appearances, which are only shadows of past thoughts and beliefs. This withdrawal of attention is essential for the transformation of consciousness. As long as you are fixated on external conditions, accepting them as the ultimate reality, you cannot truly change those conditions, for what you focus on persists in your experience. By focusing instead on yourself, on the reality of your consciousness, you reclaim your creative power. The great spiritual directive, "Go within," is not merely a suggestion. It is the only way to fundamentally change your life. For all external circumstances are but reflections of internal states. Change the internal, and the external must change accordingly. This is why Jesus taught, "Judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment." Righteous judgment is to see not with the outer eye of the senses, which reports only the effects of past causes, but with the inner eye of imagination, which sees what is desired as already accomplished. When you focus on yourself, you are focusing on the cause rather than the effect, on the source rather than the shadow. This is the essence of true spiritual practice. And what of the silence that must accompany this focus? It serves multiple purposes in the manifestation of your desires. First, silence prevents the dissipation of creative energy. When you speak prematurely of your desires or your imaginal acts, you often release the tension necessary for manifestation. It is like deflating a balloon before it has lifted you to your destination. I have observed that those who speak least of their ambitions are often those who accomplish them most impressively. They have intuitively grasped the power of silence, of holding their vision sacred and protected from the doubts and criticisms of others. Second, silence allows the subconscious mind to work unhindered. When you maintain outer silence about your desires and inner silence through the quieting of contrary thoughts, you create the ideal conditions for the manifestation of your imaginal acts. The subconscious accepts what the conscious mind impresses upon it, but this impression must be clear and consistent. By maintaining silence, refusing to contradict your assumption with either words or thoughts, you ensure that the impression remains undisturbed until it manifests in your outer world. Third, silence is an expression of absolute faith in the law. When you know that a thing is done in consciousness, you feel no need to speak of it anxiously or to seek constant reassurance. Your silence is a testament to your confidence that what you have assumed in imagination must objectify itself in your experience. This is the meaning of the biblical instruction. "But thou, when thou prayest, enter into thy closet, and when thou hast shut thy door, pray to thy Father which is in secret, and thy Father, which sees in secret, shall reward thee openly." The closet is your consciousness. The door that must be shut is the silence you maintain against all contradictory thoughts and words. And the Father who sees in secret is the law of your own being, which unfailingly brings forth the harvest of your mental sowing. Let me share with you another example from my own experience. Many years ago, I desired to travel to Barbados to visit my family, but I had no apparent means to make the journey. Rather than focusing on this limitation, I turned within, I focused on myself, on my consciousness, and I imagined stepping off the ship onto the soil of Barbados, being greeted by my family, feeling the warm tropical air on my skin. I performed this imaginal act night after night, and I maintained silence about it. I did not speak to others of my desire to travel when I had no visible means to do so. I did not allow myself to engage in anxious thoughts about how this journey would be accomplished. Within a matter of weeks, a series of seemingly unrelated events culminated in my receiving both the funds and the opportunity to make the journey exactly as I had imagined it. The outer action, booking the passage, boarding the ship, came naturally and effortlessly as a result of my inner action of consciousness. This is the pattern of manifestation that I have observed countless times, both in my own life and in the lives of those who have applied this teaching faithfully. The inner creates the outer. The focus on self, on consciousness, precedes and determines the conditions of objective experience. Now, let us consider what typically prevents people from successfully focusing on themselves and maintaining silence. The primary obstacle is the tendency to be constantly drawn outward by the evidence of the senses. From childhood, we are taught to believe that what we can see, hear, and touch is more real than what we imagine. We are conditioned to accept the testimony of the outer world as the ultimate truth. And so, when we attempt to focus on ourselves, on our consciousness, we are repeatedly pulled back to external reality by the sheer force of habit. This habit can be broken, but it requires determination and practice. It requires a willingness to question the evidence of the senses and to affirm the primacy of consciousness. It requires faith in the unseen reality of your own wonderful human imagination. The silence that I advocate is equally challenging for most people. In a world that values expression, communication, and constant sharing of thoughts and feelings, the discipline of silence can seem strange or even threatening. Many feel that by not speaking of their problems, they are somehow denying them or refusing to deal with them responsibly. Others fear that by not continually affirming their desires verbally, they might forget them or lose momentum toward their fulfillment. But I tell you that true silence, the silence that follows complete inner acceptance of your desire, is fulfilled, is not denial or forgetfulness. It is the most powerful affirmation possible, for it stems from the confidence that what is done in consciousness is done indeed and needs no further effort or assertion. This silence is not the gritting of teeth against adversity or the repression of genuine feelings. It is the natural quiet that descends when you know that your desire is already yours, and the only reality that ultimately matters is the reality of consciousness. Consider the words attributed to Jesus. Therefore I say unto you, what things soever ye desire, when ye pray, believe that ye receive them, and ye shall have them. This is a perfect expression of the principle I am teaching you tonight. To focus on yourself is to enter the state of prayer, not as supplication, but as assumption. And to stay silent is to maintain the belief that you have already received, regardless of appearances to the contrary. Now, let me address a common misconception. Some may think that by focusing on yourself and staying silent, you are somehow withdrawing from life or avoiding responsibility. Nothing could be further from the truth. When you focus on yourself in the way I am describing, you are engaging with life at its causal level. You are taking full responsibility for your experience by acknowledging and exercising your role as the creator of your reality. And the silence I advocate is not an aloof detachment from the world, but rather a reverent recognition that the world is responding to your consciousness, not the other way around. It is the silence of mastery, not the silence of defeat or resignation. Let me offer you a practical discipline to develop your ability to focus on yourself and maintain silence. Each day, set aside a period of time. It need not be long. Even 15 minutes will suffice, during which you deliberately withdraw attention from the outer world and focus entirely on your consciousness. During this time, ignore the evidence of the senses. Embrace all concern with problems, conditions, or circumstances. Be fully present with your I am, your awareness of being. Feel the reality of your existence independent of all external factors. From this state of self-awareness, select a desire, something you wish to be, to do, or to have. Now, with the full focus of your attention, imagine this desire is already fulfilled. See it, feel it, accept it as done. As you emerge from this period of focused imagination, maintain silence about your practice. Do not speak of it to others, and do not allow your inner conversation to contradict what you have established in consciousness. If doubts arise, and they will, for all habits of thought are persistent, do not fight them directly. Instead, gently return your focus to the feeling of your desire fulfilled. Remember that what you focus on expands, so by focusing on the doubt, you only strengthen it. Focus instead on the assumed reality of your wish fulfilled. Practice this discipline daily, and you will gradually develop the capacity to focus on yourself, on your consciousness, rather than on external conditions. You will also strengthen your ability to maintain silence, to hold your vision sacred and protect it until it manifests in your experience. This practice is the essence of what I have been teaching for many years, though I have expressed it in various ways and through different metaphors and examples. It is the art of changing your life by changing your consciousness, and it is based on the absolute law that consciousness is the only reality. The Bible, which I have always interpreted as a psychological rather than historical document, is filled with references to this practice. When properly understood, it is a manual for the mastery of consciousness and the manifestation of desire. For instance, consider the story of the Exodus. Egypt represents the bondage of belief in external conditions, while the promised land represents the freedom of knowing that consciousness is the only reality. The journey from one to the other is the process of shifting focus from the outer to the inner, from the effect to the cause. The 40 years in the wilderness represents the period of transition during which old beliefs die and new awareness is established. The various trials and tests along the way represent the challenges of maintaining focus on the inner reality when outer appearance is contradicted. And the command to be silent in various situations throughout the journey represents the necessity of not contradicting with our words or thoughts the assumption of already being in the promised land. This is your journey as well. You may currently be in Egypt bound by belief in the limitations of external reality. Through the practice of focusing on yourself and staying silent, you will journey to your own promised land, the fulfillment of your desires through the conscious exercise of your creative imagination. Let me share with you one more example that may clarify this principle further. A young man once came to me deeply concerned about his professional future. He had applied for a position that represented his dream job, but he had been told that there were hundreds of applicants, many far more qualified than he. Rather than focusing on these external circumstances, I advised him to focus on himself, on his consciousness. I suggested that he imagine being congratulated on securing the position, feeling the handshake of his new employer, hearing the words of welcome, experiencing the satisfaction and joy of having attained his desire. And I emphasized the importance of silence. He was not to speak to anyone about having used his imagination in this way. He was not to anxiously discuss his chances with friends or family. He was not even to allow his inner conversation to question the reality of what he had imagined. He followed this guidance faithfully, and within 2 weeks he received a call from the company. Despite the supposedly overwhelming competition, he was offered the position, the external action, the interview. The acceptance flowed naturally from his changed state of consciousness. This is the pattern you will observe in your own life as you practice focusing on yourself and staying silent. The outer circumstances, no matter how fixed they may appear, must yield to the power of your consciousness when you know the law and apply it faithfully. Now, as we approach the conclusion of our discussion, let me leave you with this thought. The practice I have described to you is not merely a technique for getting what you are, though it certainly is that. It is a way of aligning yourself with the fundamental reality of the universe, the reality that consciousness is primary and that the world of the senses is its projection. When you focus on yourself, on your consciousness, and maintain silence until your assumption manifests, you are not only fulfilling your desires, you are fulfilling the very purpose of your existence, which is to experience and express the infinite creative power that is your true nature. You are here to create, to imagine, to assume, to transform not through struggle and effort, but through the wonderful human capacity to conceive and believe. And as you discover and exercise this power, you will find that life becomes not a series of problems to be solved, but a joyous journey of ever-expanding awareness and expression. The world is your consciousness objectified. Change your consciousness and you change your world. This is the simple yet profound truth that has the power to transform every aspect of your experience. Remember the words of the prophet, "Be still and know that I am God." Be still, maintain silence. No, focus on the reality of your consciousness that I am God. Acknowledge the divine creative power that is your true identity. This is the practice that will lead you from bondage to freedom, from limitation to fulfillment, from frustration to satisfaction. This is the art of focusing on yourself and staying silent. Tonight, as you retire to sleep, I urge you to put this teaching to the test. Select a desire, something that you genuinely wish to experience. As you lie in bed, relaxed and receptive, focus on yourself, on your I am, your awareness of being. Then, from this center of your being, imagine your desire is already fulfilled. Feel the reality of it. Accept it completely. Fall asleep in this state of conscious assumption and maintain silence about it. Do not speak of it prematurely, and do not allow your inner conversation to contradict it. Do this faithfully, persistently, and with full attention to the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Then observe as the outer circumstances of your life begin to rearrange themselves to match your inner conviction. For this is the law. What you focus on in consciousness, with feeling and conviction, must objectify itself in your experience. It cannot fail, for consciousness is the only reality and all things are possible to him who believes. Focus on yourself, on your consciousness. Stay silent until your assumption has become your experience. This is the way to the fulfillment of all your desires, the way to the life you truly wish to live. For when you know yourself as the creator of your reality, you have discovered the greatest secret of existence, and nothing can ever limit you again. In my Father's house are many mansions, many states of consciousness. By focusing on yourself, you choose the mansion, the state that you will occupy. And by maintaining silence, you allow that choice to become your dwelling place. The choice is yours now and always. Choose wisely and live in the joyous awareness of your creative power. The end of all seeking is to know yourself as the creator of your experience. The purpose of all teaching is to return you to the center of your being, where true power resides. And the reward of all practice is the freedom to be, to do, and to have whatever you can conceive and believe. Focus on yourself and stay silent. This is the key I offer you tonight, the key to the kingdom of your own unlimited potential. Use it faithfully and watch as the world transforms before your eyes. For in truth, there is no power outside of you. There's nothing to overcome, nothing to fight against, nothing to fear. There is only your consciousness, your awareness, your I am, and its infinite capacity to conceive, to believe, and to experience. Know this truth, and it will set you free. Embrace this principle, and it will transform your life. Share this understanding through your example, and you will help to awaken others to their own divine creative power. This is my message to you tonight. Focus on yourself and stay silent. In these simple words lies the secret of fulfilled desire, the path to your highest good, and the realization of your true nature as the operant power in your world. Thank you for your attention, and may you go forward from this hour with the confident knowledge that all your desire is already yours in consciousness, awaiting only your recognition and acceptance to become your living experience.